Today we'll be dealing with subject, object and complement part of the verbs. What is a subject in a sentence? Now you all have done it before that subject is a very important part of a sentence and mostly all the sentence need to have a subject. So what is a subject? Subject is a part of a sentence that is doing something or about which something is said. So basically the person who is doing an action in the sentence is a subject, or a thing around which the whole sentence revolves is a subject. Whom or what a sentence is about, that is a subject. Now, a subject will always have a verb. If you are asked to identify a subject in a sentence, you need to look for the verb first. That means an action, because the subject will do an action. So, a verb always has to be there in a sentence if you have to identify the subject, and then you need to ask yourself who or what is doing the action in the sentence, and the answer will be the subject. Some examples. A can of lima beans sits on the shelf. Now here the subject is can because the whole sentence revolves around a can. And what is the action that is done by the can? Sits. Now can is a non-living thing, but here sits means it was placed on a shelf. Okay, there is a subject can, there is a verb sits. The women who went to the meeting were bored. Now what is the subject? The whole sentence revolves around the women. Understood? Okay. So a subject is a person who does an action, or it is a thing around which the whole sentence revolves. What is object in a sentence? Now every sentence will have a subject, it will have a verb, and then it will have an object. Now what is an object? Object receives the action performed by the subject. Now subject does an action and that action is done on something. So that something that is there at the receiving end is known as an object. For example, Alyssa is eating a banana. Now Alyssa is doing an action, is eating. And what is she eating? A banana. Banana is the object. Banana is being there at the receiving end of the verb is eating. The cat is drinking milk. Cat is subject. Is drinking is the verb. And what is the cat drinking? Milk. Milk is a object. I bought a present for my wife. I is the subject. The action that I did is bought. Bought is the past tense of buy. So I bought. What did I buy? A present. A present is an object. So remember, the object always comes after the verb. It always comes after the action in a sentence because object is always at the receiving end of the verb. Now this is a universal formula that every sentence follows. Subject, verb, object. Subject comes first because subject will do an action, and then the action will be there, that is the verb, and that action will be done on an object. So this is a universal formula which is followed by almost every sentence. Yes, sometimes subjects are also placed towards the end of a sentence just to give a poetic or say a dramatic feel. For example, I can say, in the forest were running some animals. Now the whole sentence is not about the forest. Who is doing an action here? In the forest were running some animals. Animals is the subject. So subject has come towards the end of a sentence. So animals is the subject here. What were the animals doing? Action, running. Clear? Sometimes a subject can also be placed towards the end of a sentence. You can see some examples below. I read newspaper. Read is the verb. Newspaper is the object. Plays. He plays cricket. Plays is the verb. Cricket is the object. So the basic formula or the structure of every sentence is a subject, verb, and an object. Now there are two types of objects. You have done in the previous videos as well. There are two types of objects, direct object and an indirect object. Now read an example below. He gave the pirate a chance. Who is doing an action here? He. He is the subject. What is the action? Gave. Gave is the verb. What did he give? He gave a chance. So chance is at the receiving end. Chance is the direct object. And the chance was given to whom? It was given to the pirate. So the pirate is the indirect object. So what is an indirect object? An indirect object is the recipient of the direct object. Now there is somebody or something who receives the direct object. That is an indirect object. Direct object is the object which receives the action. An indirect object is the object which receives the direct object. Read the example once again. He gave the pirate a chance. He gave what? Chance. Chance is direct object. To whom was the chance given? The pirate. The pirate is the indirect object. Now, what is a complement? Complement is a word or a group of words that completes the meaning of a verb. Complement can be a word also, or it can be a group of words that completes the meaning of the verb. Complement is required to complete the meaning of a sentence or to complete the meaning of a verb in a sentence. There are majorly 4 kinds of complements: direct objects, indirect objects, object complements, subject complements. Now, direct and indirect objects you have already done before. They are also, direct and indirect objects also completes the meaning of the verb because they are placed after the verb. They add meaning to the verb. Now, what are subject and object complements? Let's see some complement examples first. Examples of complement. She is beautiful. What is the complement here? Beautiful. She is the subject, is the verb, and which word is completing the meaning of is? Beautiful. She becomes a doctor. A doctor is adding meaning to the verb becomes. It is a complement. He was in the bus. In the bus is adding meaning to the verb was. Your perfume smells very good. Very good is adding meaning to the verb smells. So complement can be one word also. It can be a group of words which adds meaning or tells us more about the verb in a sentence. What is subject complement? Subject you people already know. A subject is a person or a thing around which the whole sentence revolves. A subject complement is a word or word group that is in the predicate and that identifies or describes the subject. So subject complement can be a word also or a group of words which is there in the latter half of the sentence and it describes or tells us something more about the subject. Complement is something, like I told you, that adds meaning to the word. And subject complement, a word or a group of words which adds meaning or tells us more about the subject in the sentence. A linking verb connects a subject complement to the subject verb. Let's see the example. Mrs. Suarez is a helpful neighbor. The subject complement neighbor identifies the subject Mrs. Suarez. The linking verb is connects Mrs. Suarez and neighbor. So remember, subject complement is always connected with the subject using a linking verb like is, am, are, was, were. These are the linking verbs majorly. Okay. So in this sentence, Mrs. Suarez is a helpful neighbor. What is the verb? Is. And which word is telling us more about the subject Mrs. Suarez here? Neighbor. Or you can also say helpful neighbor. This is the subject complement because it is telling us more about the subject Mrs. Suarez. So subject complement is a word or a group of words which tells us more about the subject and it will always be placed after the verb. Subject complement examples. The box is a present. The box is the subject. Is a linking verb. And which word is telling us more about the box? A present. What is the box? It is a present. The box smells funny. The box is the subject. And the word which is telling us more about the box, that is the subject, is funny. So, a, present and funny are subject complements because they are adding more information. They are telling us more about the subject. and they are always placed after the linking words. Linking words basically are helping verbs also, and linking verbs are also those words which are not direct actions, in which your body is not physically moving. So they are linking words. They can't be called action words. Now, what is an object complement? A word that follows a direct object, that means a word that is placed after the direct object to rename it or state what it has become. Now, what is a complement again? A complement is a word or a group of words which adds meaning or tells us more about the verb. Subject complement tells us more about the subject, and object complement tells us more about the direct object in the sentence. Chocolate makes Tanya happy. Now, what is the subject here is chocolate. What is the verb? Makes. And what is the direct object of chocolate? Tanya. Clear? Makes Tanya. Tanya is the direct object. And which word is telling us about Tanya? Happy. It makes Tanya happy. So, happy is the object complement. Chocolates don't tell us about Tanya. Makes does not tell us about Tanya. But happy tells us that she is happy when she gets chocolates. So, happy is telling us more about the direct object Tanya. So, happy is an object complement. Object complement examples. I found the guard sleeping. I am the subject. Found is the verb. Who did I find? Guard. That is the direct object. And which word is telling me more about the guard? Sleeping. Sleeping is the object complement. We all consider her unworthy. We is the subject. Consider is the verb. Her is a direct object. We all consider whom? Her. And what do we consider her? Unworthy. Unworthy is telling us more about her. It is telling us more about the object her. So unworthy is the object complement. Subject complement tells us about the subject. Object complement tells us about the direct object. And it will always be after the direct object because it is adding information about it. Now, the final part is parts of a sentence. Now, every sentence will have 4 major parts. A subject, then it will have a predicate. Predicate is all the words in a sentence except the subject. Subject is a person or a thing around which the sentence revolves, and rest everything is the predicate in the sentence. For example, she is a happy girl. She is the subject, is a happy girl. This whole part will be a predicate. And then a sentence will always have an object also. Object is something or somebody that receives the action, that receives the verb. And complement is a word or a group of words which tells us more about which adds meaning to the sentence and tells us more about the subject or about the direct object. Now, in order to have a quick recap, you all can have a look and watch the video again to have a better understanding. Thank you.